The sands of Wasset burned under her torn feet, each step a raw scream against the scorched earth. The sun hung merciless above the valley, but it was not the heat that tormented her, it was the shame. Her linen robe, once white as Nile lilies, clung to her bruised skin in tattered strips. Blood streaked her cheek where her stepmother's ring had struck her. Her name was Netipet, daughter of a scribe and servant to cruelty since the day her mother died. She had fled the house that morning with nothing but a broken necklace, clenched in her fist, her mother's last gift. The city watched in silence as she stumbled through the market, eyes wide with a pain too ancient for a girl of 17. Whispers followed her like vultures. "Is that the scribe's daughter? What happened to her?" But no one moved to help. Not until she crossed the sacred gate of the temple of Sobek, where the high priest's adopted son stood Menmaatre. He had only seen her once before, a ghost in white on the edge of a festival crowd. But this time, she wasn't a ghost. She was a storm. His sandals touched the edge of the temple steps, and she collapsed at his feet. He caught her before her body hit the stone, his arms cradling her like one would a sacred scroll. Her eyes, clouded with sand and tears, met his for the first time. "They lied," she whispered. "I didn't do it." And just like that, a fire ignited behind his calm eyes. Something had broken her, but something else had brought her to him. In the heart of a city carved by gods and governed by fear, a girl with nothing had found the one soul reckless enough to believe her. Menmaatre carried her through the temple corridors, past towering statues of crocodile gods and oil-lit braziers that hissed with incense. Priests stared, some in outrage, others in stunned silence. But no one dared stop him. Not the son of the high priest, not when his jaw was clenched like stone. He laid her gently on a linen-draped bench in the herb chamber, where healing oils and crushed lotus lined the walls. Her breath came in shallow gasps. When he tried to speak, she flinched. "Easy," he said, voice low, steady. "You're safe now." She shook her head. "No one is safe from them." Her voice was ragged, but her eyes held a truth sharper than obsidian. "They said I stole from the palace, a bracelet of Queen Anki's cinnamon. But I didn't. I was just cleaning the floors." Menmaatre frowned. That bracelet had caused a storm within the court. Theft from royalty meant death. No trial, no questions. And now, this girl was its scapegoat. "Why you?" he asked. Her lips trembled. "Because I'm alone. Because I know something I shouldn't." She reached into her torn robe and revealed a tiny clay amulet, caked with dried blood and dust. "My father found this near the queen's chamber before he died. He said it was a curse token, but he never got to report it. They poisoned him." Menmaatre's hands curled into fists. He had seen this kind of amulet before in the restricted scrolls of forbidden rites. Not many lived to speak of it. "You think someone planted it?" "No," she whispered. "I think someone summoned something." The room fell silent, the scent of lavender and myrrh now choking. What began as a rescue had become something else. The temple, the city, even the throne, none of it was safe. And now, neither was he. Night fell heavy over Wasset, but the temple remained restless. Torches flickered along sandstone walls as Menmaatre moved like a shadow through sacred corridors. He couldn't sleep, not after what she had said. Netipet lay under a healer's care, her fevered body twisting as if chased by unseen hands. The amulet she gave him pulsed with a strange coldness in his palm. It was carved in the likeness of Anubis, but wrung its eyes too narrow, the snout twisted, the glyphs on its back written in a script not taught in any school of priests. He had to know. He slipped into the inner sanctum, the one chamber even priests avoided after nightfall. At its center stood the colossal statue of Sobek, its obsidian eyes glinting with an animal's hunger. Offerings lay at its feet, flowers, bread, coins. But something else was there now. Blood, fresh. Menmaatre knelt, dipped a finger into the crimson pool, still warm. He looked up, heart hammering, and that's when he saw it scratched into the base of the statue, half hidden by shadows, the same cursed glyphs etched into the amulet. Suddenly he wasn't alone. A gust of wind tore through the closed chamber, dousing the torches in an instant. Cold gripped his spine. A voice, not spoken but felt, rippled through the dark. "She is the key. Break her, or be broken." Menmaatre backed away, eyes wide, stumbling toward the entrance. As the chamber doors slammed shut behind him, the echo reverberated through the temple walls. Something ancient had been awakened, and it knew her. He rushed back to Netipet's side, her brow drenched in sweat, her lips moving in silent prayer. He knelt beside her, and for the first time, whispered not a question but a vow. "I'll protect you, even if the gods themselves rise against us." Netipet awoke with a start, gasping as if pulled from deep waters. Her eyes darted around the chamber, then found Menmaatre sitting nearby, a blade resting across his knees and worry etched deep into his face. "I saw him," she said hoarsely. "My father. He was standing in the field of reeds, but his mouth was sewn shut." Menmaatre leaned in. "A dream?" She shook her head. Number A, warning. She sat up despite her trembling limbs, pointing to the amulet on the table beside them. "He said it's one of 7, each one bound to a soul sacrificed in silence." Menmaatre's skin prickled, the forbidden glyphs, the blood at the statue, and now this. 7 sacrifices for what? "To bind a spirit," she said, voice shaking. "Or awaken one." She looked up, eyes hollow. "Something is haunting the palace, my father knew. That's why they silenced him." He stood and began to pace. "And now they've marked you to die before you speak." A sharp knock rang out at the chamber door. A priest entered, face pale. "You're needed," he told Menmaatre. "In the courtyard. Now." Menmaatre exchanged a glance with Netipet, then followed. Outside, torches circled a body sprawled across the courtyard stones. One of the palace guards. His face was frozen in horror, eyes burned black, and in his palm another amulet, identical to the one Netipet had shown him. Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd, but Menmaatre stepped forward. The glyphs on this token were clearer. They formed a phrase. He whispered it aloud, barely able to breathe. "He who wears silence commands the dead." He looked up toward the palace beyond the temple walls, its golden spires gleaming under the moonlight. Something had begun, and someone, perhaps even a queen, was already playing God. At dawn, the palace gates groaned open, allowing Menmaatre to pass through under the guise of delivering sacred herbs to the royal physician. Netipet's warning echoed in his ears with every step. Someone inside wears the mask of devotion, but feeds on the silence of others. He moved swiftly through columned halls, painted with scenes of pharaohs and gods. But today, The murals seemed to watch him. Queen Ankh-Cinnamon sat beneath a canopy of silk and gold, her face radiant, yet unreadable. Courtiers surrounded her like petals to a flame, but their laughter rang hollow. She dismissed them with a single wave. "Son of the High Priest," she said, eyes narrowing as he approached. "You walk boldly." Menmaatre bowed. "My apologies, Your Majesty. I bring healing oils and concerns." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Speak." He laid the amulet on the floor between them. "This was found clutched in the hand of one of your guards. He's dead." Her gaze didn't falter, but her fingers twitched ever so slightly. "A curiosity," she murmured. "Perhaps a talisman gone wrong. Superstition has always haunted this land." "And yet this symbol," he said quietly, "matches one hidden beneath Sobek's statue." Silence fell. A flicker of something cold passed through her features before she leaned back. "Are you accusing your queen?" "No," he said. "But I believe someone close to the court is using these to conjure something forbidden." The queen stood slowly. "Then tread carefully, priest son. Forbidden paths lead to ruined lives." Her voice held the weight of warning and regret. As he turned to leave, her final words chilled him. "Tell your girl to stay hidden. The gods are not the only ones who demand silence." He didn't look back, but in her eyes, for one fleeting moment, he had seen fear. Real fear. Smoke rose in thin ribbons above the temple of Sobek. Not from fire, but from cleansing rituals done in haste. Menmaatre returned to find the sacred chamber sealed, guards posted, and whispers crawling through the air like serpents. The high priest stood before the doors, face grim. "What did you do?" he asked. "Nothing," Menmaatre replied. "That blood was already there." The priest nodded slowly, then whispered, "And yet now 2 novices are dead, throats sealed shut, no blood, no struggle." A sick knot formed in Menmaatre's gut. The amulets were spreading like a plague. Whoever was behind this wasn't summoning a spirit, they were awakening it piece by piece, death by death. He hurried to Netipet's chamber, but she was gone. The healer said she'd left hours earlier, seeking the cemetery outside the city wall. "She said her father was calling," the old woman murmured, confused. Panic gripped him. The city of the dead was no place for a girl with a curse in her hands. He raced through Wasset, passing merchants, beggars, and masked faces. At the edge of the necropolis, he found her. Netipet knelt in the dust beside her father's unmarked grave, tears carving lines down her face. "He spoke again," she said as Menmaatre approached. "He told me where the 7th token lies. It's not buried. It's hidden, in the queen's own chambers." Menmaatre knelt beside her. "Why is it calling to you?" Her voice was barely a breath. "Because the final offering must be willing." Wind howled across the stone tombs, stirring ash and dust. From the shadows something moved slow, deliberate, watching. Menmaatre stood, shielding her. Whatever had been summoned was no longer content with whispers or warnings. It wanted flesh, it wanted fear, and it wanted Netipet most of all. Under the veil of midnight, Menmaatre and Netipet crept through the palace's lower halls, where servants dared not linger and torches struggled to stay lit. They passed rooms of gold, chambers of scrolls, and walls inscribed with prayers to gods long silent. But none of it mattered. The 7th token waited, and it pulsed like a drumbeat in Netipet's chest. "It's here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Behind the anointing room, The passage led to a door carved with the eye of Horus, sealed with wax and warning. Menmaatre broke it with a swift strike of his blade. Inside was not just another chamber, it was a shrine, one that did not belong to any god Menmaatre recognized. The walls were covered in inked prayers written backward. Bones rested in urns beside black lotus, and in the center, on a pedestal of red stone, was the final amulet, its surface cracked, but glowing faintly. As Netipet approached, her hand trembled. "My father was here," she said. "He saw this. That's why they silenced him." She reached out, but Menmaatre grabbed her wrist. "If you touch it, it might complete the circle. It already began when I was born," she said. "This curse, it's tied to my blood." Suddenly, the air thickened. A hiss, soft and slow, filled the room like a whisper from the underworld. Shadows twisted on the walls, and then it appeared an entity not quite beast, not quite god. Cloaked in smoke, it had no eyes, just sockets filled with flame. "She is mine," it growled in a voice like crumbling stone. Netipet froze, her hand still hovering above the amulet. "What is it?" she asked. "The thing that silence was feeding?" Menmaatre stepped forward, blade drawn. "Number! It's the voice." Silence was trying to bury. Behind them, the door slammed shut. The chamber of echoes had become a tomb. The creature stepped from the shadows, its form constantly shifting jackal, serpent, flame, its voice curling through the chamber like smoke from a funeral pyre. 7 tokens, 7 silences. I was promised a soul untouched by lies. Give her to me, and I will return your dead untouched, their mouths unsewn. Netipet stood frozen, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "My father?" The creature nodded slowly, mockingly. "And more. All who were taken to seal me." They wait on the edge of memory and flesh. Menmaatre moved between them. "You can't have her." The creature laughed, a hollow, grating sound. "The deal was struck before you were born, priest's son. She was always meant to be the gate." "Then break the gate," Menmaatre growled. He lunged, slicing at the figure, but the blade passed through smoke and fire. The entity didn't flinch. It only turned its gaze to Netipet. "But you can choose. Take my mark, end the silence, or watch the city drown in screams." Netipet trembled. Her father's voice echoed again. "Not all sacrifices are death. Some are defiance." She turned to Menmaatre. "What if I don't resist? What if I trap it within me instead?" "You'll die, or I'll lock it inside my blood forever," the entity hissed, sensing her intent. "You dare?" "Yes," she whispered. She gripped the final amulet and slammed it into her chest. The glyphs blazed with fire. The creature howled. Flames leapt across the room, spiraling into her body like sand into a storm. She screamed not in pain, but in fury. The chamber cracked, stones splitting, as the force collapsed inward. Menmaatre reached for her, but light engulfed them both. When the silence returned, she lay unconscious. The entity was gone, but her veins glowed faintly with cursed fire. She had become its prison. And its warden. Dawn broke over Wasset, but the city felt no warmth. Word spread fast of a girl found at the temple gates, skin scorched with strange light, her eyes shut but lips whispering the names of gods long forgotten. Netipet had been brought before the high priest, not as a victim but as a threat. Menmaatre stood beside her, defiant, as the temple council gathered. "This girl carries a spirit," one priest thundered. She is no longer human. She carries our salvation, Menmaatre replied. She holds the curse, so no one else must. Priest's gaze was unreadable. And if it escapes? Netipet, still weak, opened her eyes. Then let me die before it does. Gasps rippled through the chamber. She stood on trembling legs, no longer the beaten girl who once fled barefoot through the city. You all prayed for deliverance. I became the answer. You feared the silence. I became its vessel. The priesthood hesitated, torn between fear and awe. Then the temple doors creaked open. A figure entered Queen Ankhesenamun. I summon the first token, she said, voice cold with guilt. I was desperate. My heir was dying. They said this spirit could restore life in exchange for silence. She turned to Netipet. But I never meant for it to consume so much. Netipet's face held no hatred, only exhaustion. The cost is paid. Let it end. The queen approached and bowed her head. What will you do now? I will leave Wasset, she replied. Far from your gods and your whispers. I need no temple to carry what I've become. The council watched her walk away, Menmaatre at her side, past statues of stone gods who had remained silent too long. She was no longer their pawn. She was the echo of everything they tried to bury, and she was walking free. The desert stretched before them, vast and golden, swallowing the horizon like a sea of forgotten time. Netipet walked barefoot again, but this time by choice. Her feet met the sand without fear, her scars no longer symbols of weakness but of what she had survived. Menmaatre walked beside her in silence, but it was a different silence now, one not of fear, but of understanding. Where will we go? He asked gently. Where the wind doesn't carry the names of dead gods, she said. Where no one bows before fear. They traveled by night, avoiding temples and markets, slipping between ruins and palm groves. Word of her power followed them, exaggerated in every telling. Some called her a demon, others a saint. But she didn't care. The curse still flickered within her veins, quiet now, contained. Sometimes, when she slept, she dreamed of the spirit whispering, testing the walls of its prison. But it never escaped, because she never allowed it. In a quiet oasis near Nubia, they settled. Menmaatre gathered herbs. She healed those the temples had abandoned. They asked no questions. She offered no names. One evening, a young girl approached Netipet, bruised and trembling, chased by the echoes of cruelty. Netipet wrapped her in linen, looked into her eyes, and said softly, You are safe, even if the gods rise against you. It was then she realized this had never been about tokens or curses or queens. It had been about breaking the chain of silence, of fear, of power, masked as divinity. Netipet smiled faintly, watching the child sleep beneath the stars. She had been beaten, broken, made a vessel for darkness, but in the end, she had become something more, a guardian of truth, a voice in a world that once demanded her silence. The girl who carried silence had learned to speak,